This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today we're talking with Rishi Mehra, Vice President of Commercial Mapping and Routing Technology at Trimble. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here with you, Jason.
And I appreciate you taking the time because we're going to dive into something here that is really relevant and still top of mind, the California wildfires that happened. We all watched the news, saw the headlines that were coming out there and the devastation that went through California and the restoration efforts that are now ongoing in that area. And I got to thinking, well, what about trucks, right? Trucks operate in that area. They serve restoration efforts. They are first responders a lot of time. I know that Trimble has a lot of truck data, right? So I was hoping you could kind of walk us through here. And really just to start, what can truck data tell us about the emergency response as it relates to the trucking industry?
Well, there are multiple data points that we do look at from what we get from the trucking fleets that operate in or through that area. Right? One of the big things is you'll start seeing diversions of vehicles. So you can see vehicular traffic, especially truck traffic, moving away from those major highways or the primary roads that they might be using to either service or use as through transit. And we definitely saw a big change in that. On an average, on a typical time frame, we used to see around 7,000 or 7,500, in some cases even 8,000 trucks on a monthly basis, unique vehicles that would traverse through those lanes in the wildfire zones. That significantly dropped in the time frame when we were discussing the wildfires from December, January time frame. There was a drop of over 900 different trucks that did not cross through that area. So we obviously saw a vehicular pattern move away from it. Now, Trimble does not have access to data points of emergency responders going into the area. Obviously, we all know from what we have seen in the news stories and also every other partners that we have spoken to, there was an influx of those vehicles coming in. We do have presence in various entities who do building materials supply into that area, other inbound traffic that needs to go in to service the needs of disaster recovery. We did see some increased inbound movement, obviously not for the initiatives for rebuilding right now. That is still, we anticipate seeing that more so in later this quarter or early next quarter as the cleanup efforts start taking shape.
For sure. And, I think the fact of the matter is these kind of natural disasters, whether it's wildfires, we saw the flooding that happened in North Carolina here later last year. I mean, they're really kind of a fact of life that whether you're responding to them or, as we know, trucks roll across the country in various applications to get the job done. What should fleets focus on in using their truck data, be it for disaster relief or just important daily business that can maybe help them weather these storms?
I think it's very interesting that you bring this up. During natural disasters, Trimble has been working very closely with several fleets, trying to help them provide the right information. Whether you look at real-time location tracking, monitoring the vehicles, rerouting them affected from the areas, whichever weather application, weather provider they use, there is enough information out there when overlaid with the real-time location tracking. They should be able to reroute away from the affected areas. Now, Trimble, from our mapping solution perspective, we did launch a weather solution, hyperlocal weather, which is integrated both inside our navigation solution for trucking fleets as well as in the back office. That not only gives them advance warning, but during the course of driving, it also alerts the drivers. It might not have prevented or had enough impact on what's happening in the California wildfires, but definitely what we saw in the flooding that occurred in North Carolina, our alert systems already were warning of potential flooding. Of course, no one anticipated the level that it would get to with the loss of property and lives out there. But the drivers were alerted. We had our risk score index, which is powered by weather optics inside our solutions, go very high on the routes that are running through it. So if fleets start paying attention to that, that would be huge. We immediately publish out closure information, hazardous driving conditions information outside of our weather solution as well. We are proactive in providing closed roads information because of our partnership with local authorities, state governments who are on top of this, the first emergency responders. So we communicate that with the fleets themselves using the TMS solutions that we have, using the PC Miler and Copilot offerings, which most of the fleets use. So it's big initiative on Trimble's part, and several fleets reach out to us for new rerouting around it. Because one thing we forget, what happened in North Carolina, is the impact that it had on freight movement. It was one of the very busy corridors on that interstate junction out there, which got impacted. So it increased the traffic in other places. It introduced delays in transit movement of goods which were important in the overall supply chain. And fleets monitoring that, being on approved highways, not going onto the local roads, utilizing the telemetry data that we provide to them, utilizing the weather data, using this information from the straits becomes much more important.
Yeah, for sure. And I imagine even in just regular weather that can be threatening. I mean, we're in the Midwest here and also the Northeast. We have our third ice storm, I think, about to roll through here in the past week, right, which can create some treacherous driving. I know I was on a road trip earlier, and you start to see vehicles getting stuck because the plows are doing their best to keep up with it and can't. I mean, those can be dangerous situations as well for fleets.
Definitely paying attention to what's happening on the ground, paying attention to the closure information that's being published. Like you're talking about the Midwest and New Jersey, we had all vehicular and definitely commercial vehicle traffic shut down on the previous ice storm. It wasn't as bad last night when the latest storm moved over, but it still dumped a good amount of snow and ice on some of the highways to cause hazardous conditions. So not only staying on top of that, utilizing the resources, but the communication between the drivers and fleet managers is also very important. There is so much we can rely on our AI algorithms working in the back and predicting what the road conditions would be. But if you have a driver who either has traversed through that or has pulled over, hopefully into a safe location, communicating back with that driver, fleet managers getting the road conditions and communicating the safety steps for them to take is super critical. And fleets have to make extra effort to ensure the safety of not only their equipment, but also the loads. A few hours late is okay in such conditions.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and, I think what you speak to here is often something maybe even me in the media side or the narrative we gloss over. This connectivity, it connects people, right? It connects the fleet managers. It connects the drivers. It gives you a shared space of data to talk about and discuss and communicate about. Do you have any tips for fleets about how to do that effectively to operate more efficiently?
Well, there are different applications of obviously. The main thing is there's app fatigue also between fleets and drivers from a communication channel perspective. Our recommendation and guidelines to fleet managers is to rely on their telematics solutions. There's great messaging tools inside the telematics offerings that they're utilizing, be it from any one of the large providers out there. And then back in the TMS, Trimble's made a conscious effort to include real-time messaging channels between the back office where the fleet managers are residing and in the screen of the driver. They should leverage that a lot more so that you're not distracting the driver across different communication channels, keeping them focused on track. It is not an easy task to be hauling that load, fully loaded 80,000 pounds across treacherous weather conditions in there. So that has to be the case where they need to be on sync using existing tools. Plus, monitoring the driver behavior is very important. I think all telematics providers offer this capability right now to give information around speeding, around harsh braking, things that let you know if there's a safety incident potentially. You combine that data with the weather information that we provide from Trimble out to the customers. That is a very powerful tool for the fleet managers to make decisions on.
Rishi, I appreciate you taking the time to educate us on all the possibilities that data brings to truck operation, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again very soon.
Look forward to continuing the discussion, Jason.